Everyone knows about the entry of Soviet troops in Afghanistan in 1979 and the subsequent Soviet campaign in the country. However, it was far from the first time that the Soviet Union had intervened in Afghanistan's internal affairs. And in this video we will examine all the cases when Russia deployed troops to Afghanistan. Soviet troops first crossed the Afghan border as far back as 1929, during the Civil War. Soviet-Afghan relations were favorable from the 19th year. Afghanistan became one of the first countries to establish diplomatic ties with the Soviet Union and signed a friendship agreement. Both countries needed political support, which might be why they chose to collaborate. Afghanistan was then fighting for independence from Britain. After gaining independence, Amanullah Khan, a rather progressive politician, became the leader of Afghanistan. Amanullah introduced a series of radical reforms that disrupted Afghan norms. He adopted Western policies, seemingly inspired by developments in Turkey. This movement shifted the country towards capitalism, granting people basic rights and freedoms. For instance, polygamy and marriage with minors were banned. However, taxes rose and pressure on peasants increased, breaking down traditional customs. This led to widespread dissatisfaction, culminating in a civil war that began in 1928. This was the conflict that the Soviet Union intervened in, fearing that the friendly regime under Amanullah might be replaced by an ultra-conservative Muslim rule led by Habibullah. Initially, the rebels claimed victory after victory, and Habibullah seized Kabul, briefly proclaiming himself the king of Afghanistan. Hence, secret Red Army units were formed in the spring of 1929 for an invasion. They disguised themselves in Afghan uniforms and were strictly forbidden to speak Russian. They carried out several successful operations, capturing the major Afghan city of Mazar-e-Sharif. However, they compromised their secrecy by freely conversing in Russian, which revealed Soviet involvement in the war. Despite their successful operation, it was terminated due to the exposure of Soviet soldiers, information that became known in other countries, and the flight of the then king. In general, the Red Army's invasion barely altered the course of the war. Nevertheless, after its conclusion, Mohammad Nadir Shah ascended the throne and pursued a rather compliant policy towards the Soviet Union. The next invasion of Afghanistan happened a year later. It occurred after the end of the Civil War and was approved by the Afghan government. Essentially, it was a special operation aimed at eliminating the Basmachi. The Basmachi movement originated during the Russian Civil War and opposed the Bolsheviks, striving for the independence of the Central Asian countries. They regarded the Russians as occupiers. After the Bolshevik victory and the formation of the Soviet Union, many Basmachi fled to neighboring Afghanistan and continued their guerrilla warfare from there. They regularly attacked the Soviet border and adjacent territories. During the aforementioned civil war in Afghanistan, they sided with the rebels and supported Habibullah. Due to this, the Afghan government held negative attitudes toward the Basmachi. Furthermore, the latter were well armed and showed no signs of disarming. Eventually, Red Army units crossed the Afghan border to eliminate the Basmachi. The operation proved highly successful. The Red Army destroyed their settlements, losing only one soldier who was not killed in combat. It's widely known that the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan occurred in late 1979, and the troops remained there for almost 10 years. A year before that, in Afghanistan the April Revolution took place, led by the communists who overthrew the pro-Western dictator Mohammed Daoud. Initially, the revolution was met with approval, but within a year all planned reforms failed, leading to growing dissatisfaction among the population. The socialists pursued a policy that was generally foreign to such a conservative population. This culminated in a civil war that began in 1979. Initially, the Soviet side had no intention of interfering in Afghanistan, but eventually decided to support the socialist-friendly regime. Moreover, based on past experience, the Soviet leadership planned to carry out the operation within a couple of months, but somehow it did not materialize. Regarding Russia's modern involvement in Afghan affairs, following the previous experience, Russia was not participating in military operations. Nevertheless, surprisingly, it provided support to NATO countries for the transit of goods through its territory. Additionally, Russia supplied weaponry to the regular Afghan army. It's clear that Russia still has interest in Afghanistan and fears negative influence from that country. Russia is concerned about the rise of radical Islam in Afghanistan and fears its spread to its territories and friendly Central Asian countries. Another significant problem for Russia is the heroin trade that's endemic in the country and flows through it into European countries. Russia leads among nations in heroin consumption. So for now, you are more aware of Russia and the USSR. Thank you for watching, see you.